Ergys Sigeta is joining us. How are you doing,
I'm
Ergys?
good. Thanks for having me. Obviously, we were talking before you were saying how you knew me during and I remember you guys during the Hero Combat League days, and I've always been a fan of you guys and of you, and so thanks for having me on this show of yours. So,
Right on, man, for sure. First and foremost, congratulations on your great performance at Unified MMA 48 in Mississauga. Just on December 16th, you put on a very dominant performance. If there was ever a business case to illustrate what dominant performance means as far as mixed martial arts goes, I think we'd queue up that fight and show it to people, breaking it down round by round and moment by moment as to what dominance means. And of course, much respect to your opponent, Kaecy Raddon, who's from the US. I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name. He took this fight 10 days before, like he got a 10 days notice for the record. I think that's important to mention. Came to Toronto alone without his coaches. And of course, he's got a ton of experience as far as his amateur side. I think he was 3-0 before this match. So he comes with experience on the amateur and as well on the professional side. But he ended up losing to you, and you put on a great match. Wanted to quickly ask you and jump right into it by asking, we see you running to the cage, almost like the Ultimate Warrior slash Daniel Cormier, combination of the both, and you seem very focused, obviously very serious as you're getting in there. Tell us what's happening here. Paint that picture for us and give us some context. What was running through your mind at that moment?
oh, well, I even turned my. It was game time. You know what I mean? Like it was. All the hard work, all the preparation towards it, the not the training camp, finding like thinking I wasn't gonna fight, then finding I was gonna fight, all that just right then and there, all that was done, and it's game time. It's time to go. You know what I mean? All the pre-fight jitters, all the you know what I mean, the 4 year absence, the layoff of do I still, all that's gone. You know what I mean? And it was just at that moment when I did the run, when Slow Ride started playing, it was game time for me. You know what I mean? It was like, all right, that's it. Time to put Ergys in the back and time to put Rhino in the cage. You know what I mean? So that's what it was in a sense, where it was just I was just ready to go.
Yeah, it clearly showed the moment you stepped in there and you looked, as I mentioned, very focused and energized. And I think it meant business right away. For those who haven't seen the match between Sigeta and Raddon, check it out on UFC Fight Pass. It's Unified MMA 48. The match starts 32 minutes into the event. And I was hoping if you could kind of give us a breakdown of round number one from what you recall.
Yeah, so our game plan, like our thing was to slow him down because he's gonna come in like he's got a very aggressive style. As you were saying, he's 3-0, 8-3 as an amateur. He has 10 amateur fights, MMA fights. He's also got a ton of kickboxing fights. He's got kickboxing fights as well, so he's an active fighter. They mentioned he's a Bang Ludwig brown belt. Um, so we knew he was and he had that kind of Bang Ludwig style, even with his fight. So we knew he was gonna come out aggressive. Um, Came out exactly through a kick, and we counted. I counted the kick exactly how we were prepping it. But then what happened was he swung for a haymaker, but I came in and he came in head first, so we collided heads, and that's where I
All
tripped
right.
right there. But to be honest, that kind of helped me more than it helped him because it closed the distance right away. So I was able to use that. It's like, all right, you know what? That happened. Oh well, you know what I mean. At least I can close the distance. So as soon as that happened, I closed the distance. He was strong. You know what I mean? He had some pretty decent defense. He stuffed some of the first attacks. I had to switch and keep him guessing and keep him going. He was doing it, and he was doing it, and then everyone was saying, "Oh, he grabbed the cage," and he was doing everything to defend. You know what I mean? If he could get away, you know what I'm saying? So if I was like,
Right,
that's
right.
just what it's human nature. You know what I mean? You're trying to defend. It happens. You know what I mean? And he was
Are you sorry, real quick? Are you referring to the second when you had them on the second big slam
he had a
there?
couple of cage
At one
grabs.
point, you had right. I think you had him on your
Yeah.
shoulders, and you were talking. You were talking to the
So
ref. Is that what you're
yeah,
referring
but
to in
well,
regards
that
to?
and just think, but even that one, he had it. And what's funny is if you notice that, and we even gave him credit because we are like, that is absolute craftiness, is he held it on with his toes. So when I talked to the ref, it
Wow,
wasn't even his hand anymore, it was his toes. So
wow,
the ref didn't see it.
wow.
So the ref was like probably thinking like, what's this guy talking about? But I'm there and it was a good grip because I thought it was his hand grabbing on, but it was his toe and he was holding on with his
Mm,
toes. But again, if the ref doesn't see it, and you know what I mean, and but at that point, I had him high up, and he wasn't really going anywhere there. But yeah, so he had good defense there. He had very good elbows, like from the he was had to make sure I was getting those bicep controls. So I didn't get elbowed. He had a good guard. He elbowed me in the back of the head. So that's where I got cut open. Um, because they were saying it was behind the ear. Um, but because all the blood and even the blood smeared to my face, I thought it was up in my
right,
eyebrow, and I had cuts on my eyebrow. So my like I have scar tissue there. So I'm like, oh man, this is not good. Like that's
right.
like I like the worst spot for it to be. But it ended up being in the back of the head, and even and a lot of people thought it was the back of the ear, which is also a pretty bad spot. Which why the doctor came in for a second because he thought it was the back of the ear because that's where all the
Right.
blood smeared, but it was actually the back of the head right here. So it was so he was doing all that, and but by like I say for the first time, by like after the last slam that I did, that John Ramdeen classified as abusive. Um,
Which it was,
it
right?
looked
Which
pretty.
it was. I
It
mean,
looked pretty abusive. That last one, I'm like, yeah, he's not wrong. Um,
mhm.
I felt him wilt. That was the one where it was like he didn't have much to offer after that.
Absolutely, and I mean, and I say this with much respect to your opponent for showing up, and for people who don't know, I mean, fights sometimes don't happen because opponents are unable to make it, and of course, it's great to have alternates show up and represent. And this individual, he did just that. He stepped in there, and he brought it to you. But I mean, three major takedowns. 1 minute into the match, right away you secured that, followed by another one about 140 seconds later, and then finally 30 seconds left in the match, and you secure that major abusive slam. And I mean, it made quite a statement. It made it quite a statement, and clearly you had dominated that first round, and you broke your opponent, and I say this respectfully. I'm not
No,
trying
yeah.
to, what I'm saying. Like it's a tough sport, and these things happen. And for me, my initial thought, just being brutally honest here, my initial thought was like, man, obviously the booking is bang on here because you have someone who's 4-0 versus someone who's 3-0. It's the
Yep.
same level of
Yep.
experience. There's no major dichotomy in the
Yep.
level of deficiency in skill, but in a way, I almost think like there is a major deficiency in skill here. You're clearly very skilled in all aspects of mixed martial arts, but even more so compared to this individual. By the end of the first round, I'm thinking Matt, the booker, the promoter of Unified MMA, etc., whatever, are they going to put you into a title fight the next time you fight? Because that's where my mind went to, because I knew it was the done deal after that round. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you see that sort of
Yeah.
dominant first round, it makes quite an impact. I know I'm jumping over a lot here by just saying this guy needs a title fight, but that's where my mind went to. And obviously, I say that as someone who's seen you fight in your amateur days. But you know, we'll get into it. But before we do that, let's talk about round number 2. Obviously, 10 seconds into this round, you secure a takedown. Please tell us what happens next.
Yeah, so started like going then once I got the takedown and once I turned him because the first round I had the same position. It was hard to really like I wouldn't say hard to do, but he was resisting. This second round, as soon as I felt him, like I'm like, oh, he's done. I'm like, he's got absolutely nothing left. His punches weren't the same. He actually landed some good ground and pound punches in the first round, like, sorry, from bottom. Like he was going, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's this guy's actually trying to knock me out with these punches. But the second round, he had nothing. The punches weren't the same. He was exhausted. He was tired. He was wilting. And that was the goal. And I say that, and I'm not saying that because that's the goal with my fights. I want the guys to break. I want the guys to wilt. I don't want the guys to be 100%. That's not me saying that because it's my style. It's the way it is. It's not going to change. You've seen it in my amateur days. It's the same way. It's just go, go, go. So I felt him breaking. I felt I started round 2 here the same way I started round 1, but he couldn't keep that pace anymore. And I just brought it up slightly and he just wilted from that. So I just kept ground and pounding, going. And at that point, I'd say my mind was on autopilot in a sense where I was just going because we prepped this in practice so much where it's like I didn't need to think about it. Where it's like right away to side control, right away to back, right away to the inside wrist control, right away to mount. Like it was like stuff that I was doing in sparring, stuff I was doing in practice. It didn't feel like, oh, I have to do this. It was like, oh, like it's game time now. Let's go. Let's up the pressure. Here. Oh, he's trying to reverse. Boom, side control. Let's go here. Oh, he's trying to do this. Okay, let's go to the back mount here. And then as soon as I had the mount, I had 2 of my coaches, Ryan Grant and Paul Jalbert, go like elbow. But my other coach, Dom, my main jits coach, who gave me my black belt, he's like smother, and that's something we've been practicing, smothering from mount to set up the arm triangle. He's like smother. So that's what I did. I set up the arm triangle. I was smothering for the arm triangle, and then I set it up, and this is where it gets tricky because he was complaining. He wasn't out, even though in the video it shows that he was going out. I heard him slowly stop breathing. Like it was the breaths were getting slower and slower, and they were like and I slowly stopped him hearing, but I think it was at the point where the ref was so on him that that even if he wasn't out, he was almost out because of the way if he did the telephone, and I was saying, oh sorry, if he did the telephone armbar and he was here, maybe he could have had a little, but because he had that arm out defense. And then he completely faded and let go. The referee was completely on top of him and just immediately stopped it right away. Even if he wasn't out, he was at least close to being out. And I was slowly hearing his breath go out. So again, I'm not sure because you know what I mean. The ref stops it. So I'm. You know what I mean? That's how it was. But like you see it in the videos, he was slowly going out. He wasn't intelligently defending, like in a sense where he collapsed, everything faded. It wasn't like he put his arm there waiting for rest. Everything just sagged. Again, I don't know. You know what I mean? Judging by the look of it, it looked like he was out. What I heard him slowly going out. and the referee stopped it. So.
As someone who's watched the fight, and I highly recommend people, you need to check out this fight, and you need to check out the finish in particular to this. I don't want to call it a controversy or anything like that. I think the ref called it right on in the best interest of the competitor. If your opponent was not out, then why was he laying on his back for a delayed 3 or 4 seconds with his arms extended? He was on his way out. You know what I'm saying? Like he was done. And I think if he watched the fight, and I'm sure, I'm going to assume he's watched it, he will see that for himself.
Well,
Obviously,
he apologized to me afterwards. Like a couple hours later, I think, once he settled down, he apologized to me afterwards. That's why people go like, "Oh, I'm like, you know what? He was an undefeated fighter. You know what I mean? He probably just." All these emotions, I get it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yes. And I mean, he's probably. I'm sorry to interrupt. Maybe he's never been taken to this deep end.
Well,
he's never been, you know what I'm saying, exposed to that level of offense and total domination. It's a shocker, right? It's something. If in training you're not used to being completely, beaten in that sense. You're stepping in here, you don't know what to expect. And it's interesting because I went back, believe it or not, and I looked at some of your other matches and how opponents reacted to the finish. They have this look on their face of almost disbelief because they don't even know what happened. It's like you've taken their soul.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? They're in a state of shock. It's almost implying that they almost underestimate you from the get-go for whatever reason.
I've had that, and I know it's because strength-wise, I've had a lot of people tell me I'm much stronger than I look, so they underestimate. They look and they don't understand the strength because again, it's not weightlifting strength; it's grappling strength. It's a different level. It's a different level. So I think that's what they're, you know what I mean? Because I've had people come up to me and be like what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make
right.
So I get that, but even with Kaecy, and that's what I think, like he didn't have his coaches to comfort him right after you know what I mean? Like It's hard, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And even though I respect him for even like going like you said, like taking the fight without his coaches.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like taking the fight and that's what I mean. I'm not upset at the guy for getting mad. You know what I mean? It's
no, I for sure. And I think he showed up. He did the best he could do. But I think it's one of those experiences that are valuable for him because it goes to show what he needs to work on. Because although he might have a striking background, obviously you mentioned his kickboxing experience, his MMA experience. I believe he's also boxed as well. He's done some boxing. I didn't see any of that in the match. I'm not trying to take away from his offense. He had some moments where he was able to counter you on the ground. He landed some shots from bottom. But clearly, you mounted, you secured that submission, and you tried it twice, actually.
Yeah.
The first time he managed to scramble his way out, which was impressive. But then you finished him. And the ref, the referees, I don't think fans can appreciate how challenging of a job that is to referee a match because you could tell after the referee stopped it that
he was chirping him. He was chirping him heavy. Yeah,
he was. Yeah. And the ref, big shout out to what's his name, Matthew Rocca for doing his job and remaining professional because I think there's just so much stress involved. You know what I'm saying? Like in having to deal with that situation. But he did he called it right, I believe. But that shock I think is an interesting one because the shock I'm just going back to the comment about people maybe underestimating you initially and not understanding what they're getting into. It actually works in your favor. I say that as an observer because once they're in there and they're being drowned deep into the water, it's just it's like, what the hell did I get myself into? My next question for you is obviously you win this match in a dominant way. Your fight record is 5-0. You've been away from MMA competition for 4 years now. What does this victory mean for you?
Honestly, just like right back now. Now we're back into what we were for like 4 years ago. Like now we're back to doing some stuff in MMA. You know what I mean? Like this was just to get back into it. You know what I mean? And it was a big one. You know, even though like it was a big one because I was telling someone else too. It's as much as dominant as it was, and as and even in sparring, I do well and stuff. It's still competing in MMA is different. So I did have that thought of, do I still have it? You know what I mean? Where it's like going, you know what I'm saying? Like, do I still got that? I stepped away. I did lose the fire. You know what I mean? I'm saying I didn't want to do it anymore. So coming back into it, losing all this weight and doing all this stuff, there was a little bit of doubt going like, do I still have it? And as soon as I walked in the cage, that doubt immediately went away. That feeling immediately went away, and I'm like, yeah, no, I still have it. It's still in here. So yeah, this one was definitely a big one. You know, it was my first fight back in 4 years, and it's a fight that gets me going now, right into it. You know what I mean? So definitely don't want to. So we want to try to jump in as quick as we can, try to be active as quick as we can. So that's the goal. You know, so.
Call me crazy, but I think you deserve a title fight, man. You know what I'm saying? Like after that, I'm just saying, like, why not? Because I in 60 seconds, I can make the elevator pitch as to why you deserve that title fight. But I mean, it's up to promoters and
for me, I don't like, they got their plan. I don't care for that I don't care for the title. Title in their promotion does mean a lot because they're a very big promotion. But for me, it's to get in a big show. You know what I mean? So however I get there, I get there. You know what I mean? The goal is just to keep going, to keep winning fights, and to keep doing that. So if they tell me, hey, you're fighting this or you're fighting this, be like, yeah, give it to me. You know what I mean? I'm down. I haven't fought in 4 years. You know, I'm ready to do this. You know what I'm saying? So just give me whatever you give me. So for me, like when like you say, oh, you know, like that honesty, that means a lot to me. But for me, it's like, yeah, if I get one, I get one. If I don't, I don't. You know, it doesn't like it stuff like that doesn't matter to me as long as I'm getting fights. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
You know, as someone who, there was a run where I wasn't getting fights, that's what really hurt me, and that's what really kind of made me kind of want to stop a bit, where it's like, nah, I just want to get going. That's it for me, you know, so.
Interesting. There's certainly a huge level of maturity in your outlook as it pertains to the sport and your own personal development, you know, in relations to it. I almost think, you know, because of your particular style and approach of how you fight, you know, when I look at the Canadian landscape of professional mixed martial arts, and you know, I'm scanning, I'm watching various events as any fan. I don't think there's anybody out there that, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who's listening to this, that fights in the same sort of approach that you do, you know, that with that same formula per se. This is why I say, put this guy in a title fight, throw him into the deep end, let's see what happens, because it's almost, I think it's from a fan's perspective, obviously, I think it would be very entertaining to see what happens. But I think you have quite the formula. You know, you've developed and keep adding to this Ergys Sigeta approach of fighting that's going to yield a lot of returns for you. I mean, hell, even the commentators referring to you as the Khabib.
Yeah. Canadian,
I mean, You know what I'm saying? I mean, the proof is there. And if you watch the fights and even your previous fights, most of which I think are on YouTube, you can also watch.
Couple, yeah. There's only
Yeah.
one fight that isn't, and I have it. It's the one against Davis. That's the only
Okay.
fight. Yeah, that's the only fight that I have that one by myself, and I haven't posted it.
You-
So
Why not? Why
I
haven't
just
you posted?
I just I don't know. I just haven't. I'm not good with the technology stuff. So for me, I'm like, I have it. I guess if they post it, they post it. If they don't, whatever. There's other fights, you know. So
For sure, for sure. I want to go back to what you were saying in terms of, you've been away for like 4 years now, and we haven't really fully opened the topic of basically what's deterred you from competing in MMA in those 4 years. Obviously, there was the pandemic, right?
yeah.
But beyond that, what else kind of took you away from the competition
Um,
aspect of this?
uh, Politics really in the gym. Nothing, but just certain things, but also just the whole thing of it. I was getting fights. I was getting frustrated. I just all the training and nothing was, coming in fruition. Like it was just, I was coming up empty-handed. No fights, no fights. And also too around 2019, um, I wanted to grapple. I was a purple belt at the time. I wanted to do worlds. That was something that was like people were saying, "Oh, your jiu is great, your grap," but I'm like, I know my grappling is great. I want to prove it. You know what I mean? So I wanted to do the local tournaments, and then I wanted to do the big tournament. I want to do the Noki Worlds. So I wanted to really do that. So I had I had a goal, I had something I wanted to do, and I really was more interested in jits at the time. I just wanted to focus on my grappling. So I ended up doing worlds. I ended up winning worlds. I was supposed to fight in 2020 for Prospect, and I got injured a week out. The fight fell through, and obviously then COVID happened. And honestly, I was just done with MMA. Like I'm like, you know what? I don't care for it anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
uh, I didn't have the same feeling I did when turned pro. You know what I mean? I didn't have that same, like in my mind, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really want to cut the weight. I don't want to do this, but I didn't want to do it. Um, so I got a job, worked, went up to 260.
mm,
Yeah, like put on weight, and I was coaching and commentating and doing all that stuff, but I just and I wanted and I would have I was gonna like when things open up, I wanted to do jits, but just didn't want to do MMA really. You know what I mean? Just wasn't really um, feeling the MMA as much like competing. Um, and then literally last year December, I think around this time, to be honest, just literally a year ago, I went to Grants in the morning because took some time off work, just took my holidays, and I went to the pro class, and that's when I'm like, you know what? And I was going with the pros, and I was thinking, I'm like, you know what? I still want to do this. You know what I mean? I still want to compete. I still want to go with these guys. I still want to do the hard sparring. So I slowly started losing. I was 240 at the time. I slowly started losing the weight. Gradually did a tournament in July, a jits tournament at like 215. Just slowly started losing it by then. Went to like 200, then 190, like 195, 190, and then that's when I was getting all my medicals done, and the rest is history. We got to fight, and what's funny is I could say it now because so my original opponent pulled out, but the reason they didn't get a guy sooner is because we told them not to because I was doing my medicals and I found out I had a hole in my eye.
oh
So
wow,
yeah, so then I had to go see an ophthalmologist first before
right.
anything. So we told them, luckily they booked one in Quicks. They booked one in November 30th. the ophthalmologist goes like, yeah, you're good to fight. You know what I mean? You're cleared. It's
Wow.
an old hole. It's scarred over. You don't need laser. You don't need anything. You're fine. You're good to go. So I'm like, perfect. I'm like, just write that on the thing. Tell him I'm clear to fight. It's because he's like, what do you want me to write? I'm like, that I'm clear to fight. That's all I need you to write, you know. And so that whole that's why they found a guy in 10 days notice, because we literally called them and said, hey, if you can get us someone, please get us someone. But yeah, so that was practically the whole 4 year journey
Wow.
to where now I'm fighting again. So
Just two follow-ups for that. In regards to the eye, is there any issues with vision, or
no, no,
is it
no, no,
all
no.
good?
It's everything's good. Like again, it was old. Like it was like the way she made it seem was like it was like it was like deep in there where a lot of like the optometrists couldn't. So it could have been like from before, and no one noticed it until like this one. Just she was really good at her job. She noticed it.
All right. Right.
So, and that's what the ophthalmologist said. Like, yeah, this optometrist must have been really good at her job because she found out right away. Like a lot of doctors would have missed this. So that's what it looks like. Because yeah, I've had no problems with vision. I've had no problems at all with anything. So
Well, that's good. Obviously, I'm happy to hear that for you. I just wanted to follow up, Ergys, on the topic of, like, reinvigorating that fire for competition as it pertains to MMA, because you know I listened to a ton of interviews outside of just combat sports where people talk about having, lost passion for something, if it's for a business that they were running or something creative, or if they're pursuing a PhD, but in their research they're just, you know what I mean? Like, people lose
yeah, yeah,
passion.
yeah,
It's very common. It's a common phenomenon with all sorts of different for all sorts of different people. And I was telling you before I hit record on this interview that when I heard that you were considering, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning this again, but
yeah.
when I heard, like, on the commentary that you were considering, leaving the sport of mixed martial arts, my initial reaction was like shock, because, like, when you see somebody, and again, I'm speaking as a spectator here. I'm not living the life and seeing things from the perspective of a competitor. But when you see talent, when you see potential, and when you see, I'm seeing greatness, if I can say that, and it's saying no, I'm done. You kind of wonder, like, why wouldn't they take it further? And it's not a fair question to ask, because we don't know the full scope, right? We don't understand what else is going on in one's life, and there's more to life than fighting, right? There's more to life than competing and so on, right? Well, people
Yeah.
have their priorities, but I was shocked and surprised to hear that, because you're a talented competitor, and it's good to see you back on it now, and you've kind of you've reinvigorated that fire for competition, which leads me to this question that I've been wanting to ask you, actually. Give us a brief history of your combat sports journey, because if I recall, you started in wrestling, right? Let,
Actually, well, yeah. I mean, back when I was like 8, I did karate, but I don't really count that. Um,
that's a great art form, of course.
no, it
But
is.
so
No,
you
no, no. I
started
mean, like,
karate,
I started karate like 8 to like 13.
okay?
I wasn't really good at it. I wasn't. I'm more of a physical guy. I need to grab someone and get a hold of them.
Mm,
But so then, yeah, and then 13, I started grappling. I went to a gym, and then I did high school wrestling, from grade 9 to 12. Won a couple of regional championships, got fourth in offs, and then on my grade 12 year, I actually didn't want to do. It's funny as I had no plans of doing MMA. I'm like, I wanted to just wrestle, like fully just wrestle. I went to Grands to just for like 2 months, and then wanted to go to like wrestling school and just fully do freestyle wrestling. That was the goal. Then the front desk guy, Manpreet, who he's MMA lock of the night. He's at the time he goes like, just try a fight. He's like, if you like it, you know what I mean. Then if you don't like it, that's fine. So at 17, while I was doing high school wrestling, I tried an amateur fight, and then the rest was history. I was finishing off my wrestling season, and then doing amateur MMA at the same time. So my first two fights played in like I did a fight, wrestling tournament, fight, wrestling tournament. And then after that, I continue with MMA. I was took a little time off, like 3-4 months. And then yeah, so I came back, did MMA, finished high school, and then I made it because my dad at the time didn't want me to do this. Even now he's one of my he's not one, he is my biggest supporter,
Nice.
and the big reason I can say why I made a comeback, and why I'm back to fighting right now. But at the time, he's like, no, you got to do school. You can't fight. So I'm like, give me a year. You know what I mean? Let me see what I can do in a year. So then a year later, went 7-0 as an amateur. And then also at that time, I wasn't really getting fights as well. So not getting fights. And then I think I waited like a year for 2017 till I finally made my pro debut. And even then I'm like, man, what's the point of doing this if I'm not, you know what I mean? But my dad's like, no, just be patient. You're gonna get a fight. You're gonna get a fight. So got my pro debut 2017. That's at Rec MMA. And then the rest is history after that. Fought 4 times in technically a year. 1 in 2017, 3 in 2018, and then took 4 years off after that, and then here we are now. So,
In terms of your wrestling, you mentioned you competed at OFSA, and you've achieved as far as wrestling goes. What
a bit.
would
I
you
wouldn't
say?
say achieved. There's been a lot.
You wouldn't.
There's been a lot more guys that have achieved in the wrestling wise more than I have. I think that's for a high school wrestler. That's a decent credential, But I wouldn't,
Right.
say it's
You wouldn't. I totally. I see what you're saying. I respect that. But I'm saying you competed all the way to OFSA. Yes.
yes,
Did you
yeah.
you made the podium there,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
fourth. I got fourth. I won top 6.
Right. Right. Now, question is, when you when you dabbled into amateur MMA, and you were leaving wrestling, what was the wrestling community or wrestling coaches, what were they saying as you were transitioning?
I didn't know much. It was high school wrestling, so they didn't like my high school wrestling coach at the time. He knew that I was doing MMA, so he's like, yeah, that's really cool. But again, not really much, you know what I mean? Because again, also I wasn't really known in the wrestling scene as much. I made all my splashes in grappling and in MMA. I was just doing high school wrestling. So there wasn't, no one really said anything in the wrestling department when I left and did MMA. So
The reason why I asked that is because you've transferred over a lot of those wrestling skills into your MMA, right?
yeah,
And to
yeah. Sorry, as you were because
no,
I
all good. Go ahead.
I'd say that, but I also because I give that credit to my grappling coaches and who Dom let me just in order for me to get better in grappling, he's like, we gotta like use your wrestling scrambles, wrestle up. But also too, my other grappling coach, Paul, where we would sit and watch tape, and something that I was doing was I noticed that the folk style, the American style of wrestling is different than the freestyle, and that was actually more beneficial to MMA. So I started like watching and studying tape and would drill that with my coach Paul, and we would just do that. So a lot of that was actually during my time after wrestling,
Okay.
and during my time evolving as an MMA fighter and evolving as a grappler was was when I really started um, evolving, and I'd say grappling, both grappling and wrestling skills, just making them into one, and doing that. So yeah, that's what I mean. Like high school wrestling didn't really it benefited a lot, and it benefited because not and I always say not winning OFSA was a big thing for me because it made me understand I needed to push to another level
Mm.
where I was, I honestly thought I could win OFSA, and when I didn't, I realized I'm like, oh man, this is, I experienced failure, like for me, like failure for the first time, and I'm like, well, I don't want to feel this again. So,
Right.
and I always say if I had won OFSA, I don't know if I'd won Worlds, or I don't know if I'd been undefeated, because that's what helped me. That's what pushed me. So to say wrestling definitely benefited me, but the overall style of of my game, I actually learned that as I was evolving in MMA, and
Interesting.
so and as a grappler. So
This is very insightful because I was just under the assumption, if I were to write an article about you, I would have written it along the lines of like, you came in with a lot of skill from wrestling, transferable as it applies to grappling for a mixed martial arts, and that in a way gave you that advantage. But the way you're describing it is obviously your wrestling and overall grappling game evolved, right, as you transitioned into the sport. And I would imagine it's continuously evolving. I have a question here, but something just came to my mind. I remember at that Rec MMA event where you made your pro debut. You mentioned you were 7-0 as an amateur, and then you transitioned as a professional. And from there, we see the reference of you as as Rhino, right? This
yeah,
nickname of Rhino. Speak to us as the origin. What is the origin of that? Because is it a reference? Is it a pro wrestling reference to Rhino the wrestler who wrestled in ECW
no,
and
yeah,
WWE, or is it Rhino from Marvel Comics? Or
no, it's
what's the
actually
story?
it's even the story itself, the origin story is actually even better than those two. Yeah, we were in the training camp. We were doing like a light warm up, but it was 2-on-1 sparring, right? So we are doing, and I was the one being handicapped. So I was
Right.
just then like I was just bullying these guys and going through them. So then this one boxing coach who was there, who had his guy just training, goes like, man, he goes like, I've never seen the handicapped guy bully the other guy. You're a rhino, man. You're an absolute rhino. And I'm like, that's my name. I'm sticking to it. I'm like, yep.
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
because my rule is you can't give yourself a nickname. And I'm like, man, I need a nickname. So when he said that, I'm like,
Right.
yep, that's my name. Rhino's my name. And
That's
and
awesome,
it
man.
just stuck. And everybody's like, you know what? That actually works. That's your name. So
Right.
yeah, that's actually the origin story of how I got my name, and I'm actually happy with that. It's like I love telling that story because it's actually hilarious how I got the nickname. So
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I did not know that. I thought it was a reference to
yeah,
because I know you. Go ahead.
no, yeah, no, it's the that's
Yeah, I know that you do a lot. Like, as you're clearly a pro wrestling fan. So I was
yes,
thinking, as
yes,
we're assessing this, and I'm like, oh, was it a reference to Rhino? And then I'm like, in the color commentary when you go for a takedown, I don't hear people yelling gore, gore, gore. You know
No.
how Jim
Yeah,
Ross
yeah,
used to
no,
say
no,
that
yes,
for
no, I know, I know, I know.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
So yeah, but this is interesting. I'm going to jump right into this next question. Obviously, you've evolved over the years. Even though you took 4 years off, you've evolved as far as your jiu-jitsu game. You've gotten a black belt. Congratulations.
thank you.
You're continuously adding to your game. How do you view yourself and your overall skills as a mixed martial artist, and where do you see yourself going? If I could ask you that.
You know what? Oh, there we go. That's the thing is like, however, I just try to keep learning and and improving and go and you know what? And as much as would say this, it sounds cliche, or I don't even consider myself like, it's like, oh, you're a martial artist or you're an athlete. I'm like, I'm a competitor. You know what I mean? For me, it's like I compete to win. You know what I mean? Like it's more of I compete. So it's like I look at it as I don't, I do it for fun. I do it for growth. But I look at it as that. But yeah, I just I'm just going with along with the ride. Like it's hard to answer the question because it's like I don't really have a goal in that standard. I'm just happy to learn. I'm happy to improve. I'm happy to just get better. You know what I mean? Like you said, the 4 years, I was, you know what I mean? Those 4 years, I learned a lot, you know, um, because I wasn't in competitive mode. I was in coaching mode. So I was able to just slow everything down and just have fun. And,
All right.
and that was something that I wasn't doing like I was doing, but I wasn't doing as much before, was having fun with it.
Mm.
And now just, yeah, it's the training camp's going to be uh, awful at times, especially when you're cutting weight. But it's like, as long as you're enjoying it and you're having fun and you know what I mean? And that's what I'm doing. I'm enjoying it and I'm having fun. And I'm loving the ride. You know what I mean? So for me, it's, uh, like I look at it as I'm just happy to keep improving and overall keep getting better. Um, you know what I mean? And also now, and it's a little because it's like as someone and I got a couple programs, like I run several JITS programs myself. Um, I'm happy when I see my students improve too. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
before, like it'd just be like, oh, I'm happy that I'm the best. I'm this. You know what I mean? Now it's like, man, the fact that I can go in a room with these like we used to be beginners and now they're giving me some challenges and I can actually work with them and I can think and they're learning and like that's what I'm overall happy with. I'm happy that I'm improving as an instructor, as a teacher, as a martial artist. So for me, that's you know that's what I'm happy with. So I don't know if I try my best to answer that question. It's a
You've
very
answered the question. It's a tough question, and you certainly have answered it. In fact, I almost get the feeling that I'm going to make a generalization here. You strike me as the sort of person that almost probably doesn't have many regrets in their life. You seem very laissez-faire. You're chill. You're laid back. You're going with the flow, and you're making moments have meaning. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a
yeah.
big generalization and leap,
Yeah,
but
no,
just
but
the way
that's
you're answering
that's
it.
yeah, that's how it is, and that's because you know, and I always make it as a joke. Started 2020, I thought I was gonna, have a couple fights, do all the jits. End of 2020, I'm working and I'm 250 pounds. You know what I mean? So it's like
Wow.
I'm just going with the flow. Wherever it takes me, I'm gonna give the full impact towards it. I'm not gonna huff and puff. I'm just happy wherever life goes in a
Yeah.
sense.
There's so much practicality to that approach. It's I think for some folks, I know I'm generalizing here, but for some folks, it takes them almost like half a lifetime, 50 years to kind of, just let go of the need for X, Y, and Z and just, what I mean, live life moment to moment and not get stuck in the past or what have you. And you see that in sports with some athletes. Was going to ask you, who's been the key guiding influence in your combat sports career? If it's one person or a set of people, who's been guiding you?
Like just I mean, I got a bunch of obviously RG's been you know what I mean, a driving force in a sense where even um at my 4 year break, he was he was letting me do my thing, but he goes like, whenever you want to come back, I'll always be always be there for you. So, and before that, he was always making sure I was good, and you know what I mean. And a lot of my maturity, I say, is because like I would spend a lot of time in the gym before, and I would just watch him, see how he um, handles certain things in certain situations, and do all that stuff. So he's been a very big, very big help and very impactful in my life.
Mm,
Very and it's helped me even have a responsible with the way I approach the game. You know what I mean?
mm,
Which he helped me um, with that, and he would show me, and he would never give like where other guys would be like, because I started this young, if I made mistakes, which I have, you know, um, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, gee, let him be. He's young. He would never do that." He'd be like, "No, he's in an adult sport. He's gonna have to be treated like an adult." You know what I mean? And because of that, it's why I feel like where I'm at right now, and why I'm able to handle certain situations. Um, Besides that, another driving force, again, I said my dad was a big one, even during the 4 years, even when I thought I was done. He didn't think I was done. You know what I mean?
wow. Yeah.
So no matter what, even when I was 260, he still believed I was going to fight again. So that's another individual that I know if he didn't believe, I don't know if I'd be back. You know what I mean in a
Mm,
sense. So really both of them. But yeah,
right.
and then obviously I got some other friends that have helped me along the way and along my journey. But really those two
It,
guys.
it's important to have that influence, I would imagine, right? That support mechanism in a sense, would you say?
Yes, absolutely. You know what I mean? And like I
Hmm.
said, without that, and again, I left a couple names out, but
Right.
without I feel like without the team that I have, I wouldn't be where I'm at. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And without my team, like without my coach, without RG, without Dom, without Paul, without those guys around me, um, I don't feel I'd be where I'm at. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
that's and I believe because I definitely believe in the coaches. If you have strong coaches around you, you can make a big impact. You know, I believe more in the coaches than like a big training room. You know, I'd rather have my coaches with me. Obviously, you got to have your sparring partners and all that stuff. But if you have your sparring partners without a core set of guys to guide you, then um, you're not really gonna get much out of it. You know what I mean? So I do believe in having
For
a
sure.
core set of guys to guide you in your journey and help you. You know, when you make a mistake, not to be like, oh, it's okay, but to make you understand. Look, this is your mistake. This is how you got to learn from. You can't um thing and that's what it is, right? And the big, if I could tell the story, was that Heroes Combat League when I fought Zachary Powell. I missed the weight, and that was the only time I missed weight. And after that, and even just everything, um, RG didn't be like, "Oh, it's okay," you know what I mean? It's amateurs. He said, he goes, like, "You can't do that stuff anymore. Like, you can't. Like,
Mm.
you're gonna." And people said, "Oh, it's he's a kid," and then that's when RG's like, "No, it doesn't matter." You know what I mean? You can't make that mistake. And since then, I've never missed weight. Always been under.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's just
Mhm.
stuff like that where it's like I'm happy to have coaches like where it's like they'll let me like, look, you made a mistake. You're not getting a slap on the wrist. You're taking the punishment. You have to understand that this is an issue. So
Right. That's incredible. That sounds like it's integral to one's growth. I know people have different teaching styles, and some people on the receiving end uh, react to different styles in different ways. But from what you're describing, I'm in full agreement that it's great to have people essentially calling you out when you need to hear it for your own best interest in the short to long term. I mean, that's what coaching is. So it's fascinating that you have such strong coaches around you, and a community support mechanism. This next question is really tough, and I apologize to kind of ask you such questions. You're probably never going to get asked such questions elsewhere.
no,
Maybe, maybe not. But I'll still ask if you don't
yeah, yeah,
mind.
no, for sure.
Uh, what is holding you back from achieving your greatness and dreams? And again, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. It's
Oh,
it's
you know what? Uh, right now, I don't think anything's really holding me back. Like I feel like after the 4 years, I feel like I'm ready, kind of like to just ready to go for it. You know what I mean? And put it all on the table.
Mhm.
Um, if you asked me this probably a year ago, I can answer it a little bit better. Um, I'm just thinking, what was holding me back, like in the sense that like, again, I just, like you said, the fire, I just didn't, I just wasn't feeling it. And I'm very honest with myself too, I'm not going to go in and fight it to get hurt. So if I'm not going to
Mm.
put in 100% effort, I'm not going to go in and do it. Um,
Wow.
so that's where you know what I mean? So like that's where I'm true to myself, where it's like when I did have that realization, like I'm ready to go, I'm like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to put myself through the torment, you know what I mean? And I'm ready to put myself through the three times a week running, 3 times a week weights, the sparring, my bones hurting, my my body. So
Mhm.
I'm ready to do that. I wasn't didn't really care for that before. Now I'm all for it. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, no, I don't feel like anything's holding me back now. You know what I mean? I don't. I feel like I'm ready to show, you know, my true potential and to really just go in there and just do what I do best. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I think 2023 I'm going to show that. You know what I'm just gonna and that's what it is. And I'm just ready for it. You know what I mean? I'm just ready
Right on. Yeah.
for whatever. I'm ready for whatever opportunities come. And I'm just gonna give 100% effort like I always do. So
Right. As a competitor, you're continuously evolving inside and outside of the cage, right? You're coaching, you're training, you're reassessing your style, I would imagine. What's been the hardest habit or tendency to unlearn and get rid of, particularly in your fighting style? What aspect or your approach to training? Is there something that you're trying to currently unlearn?
uh no, I mean the one thing that I feel like I've unlearned is obviously being competitive is like you want to be competitive, but you also want to be able to learn and have, you know what I mean? And I've definitely learned that now. Like I'd say good 2 years, 3 years ago, like when I first stopped fighting and stuff, but just being able to accept, oh, there's a submission, tap early, you know what I mean? Like, and ask questions and have an open mind, you know what I mean? Where
Hmm.
I would sometimes have a closed mind because it's not my style. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, where now I'm, in a sense, opening my mind, like opening more. It's like, no, I could take this. I might not be doing this in the fight, but who knows? You know what I mean? So it's having an open mind and having open ears, even though most of my ears are closed off. Having open ears to just learn and just be a sponge and just absorb everything. Really, that's it because that's, and right now there's nothing really I want to change off that because that's ideally how I approach it is being able to improve myself, how to get better, you know what I mean? And um, how to get better, how to be a better version of myself come fight time on the next fight, you know what I mean? And so yeah,
Sure.
that's something I've and as a coach, um, that's something thing is just being open minded and being, you know what I mean, and making sure you're grasping everything, and making sure you're open to learning, you know what I mean, and not shutting off because it's quote unquote not your style or not your repertoire. You know what I mean? So that's something like I'm not a fan of leg locks, but I still try to learn them, the defense, right? Even the
Right.
offense. Um, Even though I know I'm not gonna leg lock someone, it's still interesting and fun to know. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's just, and that was the same with before with kicks. I wasn't really doing kicks as much, which I'm doing more now. Even though with my style, I'm more hands and takedowns. Still helps and gets me. It sets up my stuff more. So that's something again I've been working on is really just being open minded and more, more sponge like.
Right, right. No, it's interesting. I was going to ask you about the coaching as well and how that's impacted, coaching individuals, how that impacts your own game overall. But I think you've answered it clearly. You're more open to other considerations like leg locks and so on. I watched a no gi match of yours that's on YouTube. I forgot your opponent's name,
Shaq?
and yes, I think it was yes, yes. And speaking of being open minded, one thing, and this is just me,
Yeah.
like one thing that always has me scratching my head because as a fan of other combat sports, freestyle or Greco-Roman wrestling or judo or sambo, like when I look at no-gi wrestling, particularly in, I guess, North America, or maybe it's beyond just North America, you see a lot of people just sitting on the ground immediately, not engaging in the stand-up. And in that match with that opponent, I don't think there was much engagement as far as the stand-up aspect of the game. What are your opinion on grapplers who don't have much as far as the stand-up aspect of the game?
You know what? My whole philosophy is if you can't handle the guard, some like, you know what I mean? It's a style, it's a game, you know what I mean? And people are good at
Sure.
it. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm going into a grappler's game. I'm gonna expect the guard pulls. I'm gonna expect guys not. You know what I mean? That's why I gotta be the better passer in my mind. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I'm not like some of these guys, oh, they can't do stand up. Well, you can't do a guard pass then. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's how I look at it. You know what I'm saying? It's the game. It's the ever evolving game of grappling. And nowadays, with Gordon Ryan, the wrestle ups are the thing now. From guard, you come up and you wrestle instead of wrestling. You're wrestling coming up, which is a lot harder to defend. You know what I mean? And it's actually a very unique way of wrestling, and it tricks people. You know what I mean? So I'm I'm all for it. You know what I mean? I know that's shot. Like some people are like, oh, but you're a wrestler. Why would you? I'm like, but it's the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want to try to do that in MMA, by all means, go ahead. You might not like the outcome, but like, go ahead. You're more than welcome to. And that's just the my overall take on on the guard pulling, really.
You know, it's funny because I have two more questions for you. I appreciate your time. I know we're going a little bit over
Oh no,
what
that's
I
fine.
probably said
That's fine.
initially. It's interesting because I think you just changed my mind. Believe it or not, you just no, seriously, you just opened an angle to the challenge, or to the scenario that I hadn't considered. Right?
Well, because for me,
I
I
see
look
the
at it,
validity.
yeah, I look at it as like when people go like, oh, for example, like GSP just lays in praise. Okay, get up then. Like if you have a problem, like he's doing his job, you got to do
Mhm.
yours. Like that's how I look at it. You know what I mean? Like they're doing their
Right.
job by having a great guard. Do your job by guard passing. And I could say I've been in someone's close guard, and I got tipped, and I couldn't pass it. I'm not gonna blame. I've said I'm like that guy had a brilliant strategy of trapping me in the close guard and making sure you know what I mean. And the guy's name's Amr. I'm gonna give him. He's an exceptional grappler. Um, and he had a beautiful game plan. He kept me in close guard. He didn't play the open guard. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to be like, oh, this guy didn't want to stand up with me. No, he knew exactly what he needed to do, and it was absolutely brilliant. So like I've had it done to me. You know what I mean? And I'm not, so like that's what it is. You know, I'm 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 of the belief is if you have a problem with something, you have to deal with it. So.
Mhm. Interesting. Is this Amr guy? Is he a jiu-jitsu player
He's
or
a
judo
jiu-jitsu
guy by
player.
any chance?
Jiu-jitsu player.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I'm thinking someone else then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Two more questions for you, sir. You clearly have some pro wrestling influence. We see that in your post-fight antics, and I'm a huge fan of that. By the way, when you do it, I think it's hilarious and brilliant and very unexpected. So it's a
You
win-win
gonna call
across.
it the Fargo strut or the Flair strut? Which one? I had a
The flare, the flare strut for
the
sure.
my
No,
my
it's
my
it's
buddy
us.
who's a wrestling fan goes to me and goes like, very nice Fargo strut. I'm like, you're the only one that has called it a Fargo strut, even though I actually wooed. You're the only one that called it the Fargo strut. But
He must be a real hardcore
yes, yes,
wrestling
no one,
fan to,
yes, yeah, that's the thing. So
like a real connoisseur to call it that. Speak to us about your relationship with pro wrestling.
I
You're
just
clearly a fan.
Yes, yes, I just love it. I'm just, you know what I mean? I just like watching it. My coach Ergys Ric Flair fan, so I did that
Okay,
as kind of like a thing. As you know, it started off at the Heroes Combat League. I did it, but then because I was in a finish, he goes like, you can only do that if you finish a fight. So I'm like, okay,
right.
deal. So then, so then most of the fights that I finished, I would do the Flair strut, kind of like as let me just, you said I could do it, so I'll do it. But yeah, no, I'm a huge wrestling fan. You know what I mean? I like it. I like the more old school classic. But again, so yeah, so that's really what it is. It's more of a, he thought it was hilarious, so I just kept doing it.
No, it
So.
works, man, and it's true. You do like the classics because even after your going no gi match, you
Oh
were
yeah, the Hogan.
mimicking Hogan,
Yeah,
yeah. And I'm like, man, this guy's like,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
too young to be an old school fan because you're like what 26, 25, right?
25,
So
25.
25,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, man, you know what I mean? Like
Well,
you're from that, like,
I love listening to the Jim Cornette podcast where he talks about the old
wow,
school territory days,
yes,
and
yes,
bashes the new wrestling. To be honest, I love that.
yes,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I just love all that. I love the storytelling. I love the old school. wrestling territory days, and you know what I mean. And also too, when I don't know a guy, I research it up, and I'm like, oh, this is nice. You know what I mean? I actually
Hmm.
watched because I'm like, you know, let me watch. I just recently, like a month ago, watched Terry Funk versus Harley Race. Just, you
Wow.
know what I mean? Just
Wow.
to watch it.
Legends.
Yeah, just to watch it. And I'm
Damn.
like, you know what I mean? So I really do like the old school wrestling. So, and
Fascinating.
I try to emulate, like, because even back in the day, they had a certain class about them. You know what I mean? So it's like
Hmm.
you try to,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like nowadays, people look at pro wrestling as theatrics. You know what I mean? As kind of like, oh, this is what a pro wrestler is. Like, no, if you look back in the day, they looked like they were ass kickers because most of them were former ass kickers, you know? So it's like
Sure.
it was like there was a class about them. You know what I mean? So that's why I like the old school wrestling more than today's wrestling. But
This is really, really interesting to hear all this. I'm curious to know, is there anything you take beyond, like from wrestling psychology that you bring over to MMA as far as, is there any, I'm not talking about just antics in that sort of sense, but are there any transferable skills that you would take,
no,
especially on the mic, cutting a
not
promo and
really,
all that?
not really. I mean,
No.
um, when I talk, let I just I'm free with it. Like you know what I mean? Like I'll speak like just how I speak is not really, but no,
Right.
not anything like that because um I don't know. I just there's nothing really. Again, today it's too theatric, so the point which I won't really get across what you're trying to get.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I think people
True.
will see it in a whole different way. So it's like this. I just try to be myself, and you know what I mean, and go from
For
there.
sure.
So
For sure, man. Look, man, I have one last question for
yep.
you. I really appreciate this opportunity and time, and I'm curious to know, when are you fighting next?
I have no idea. Hopefully soon. Right now I'm just relaxing, just taking some time. I know my coach Ergys, I think, gonna talk to them soon. I don't know when. I don't get it. I just get it. Hey, you're fighting here and here, so you know what I mean.
Wow.
For me, it's like, and I don't really get like, send me a name, send me the name, send me the date. I'll prepare. You know what I mean. So that's how I look
Wow.
at it. I don't really get into the whole, oh, give me this, let me know, you know. Send me the name, send me the date. Let's do this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What a professional, man. You just focused on the task at hand and your opponent. Listen, man. Congratulations on an awesome way to end the year and a great fight for fans. You know, I was really impressed, and more importantly, it's great to see you back in competition. And I want to wish you all the best in your MMA career in the new year and beyond. Hopefully, we get to talk again. So, all the best to you. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thanks, man. Thank you for having me again. Really enjoyed it.